Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 24th, 2024 East Lansing Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Bartley, would you please take roll?
I will. Commissioner Boyd.
Here.
Commissioner Chapin.
Here.
Commissioner Denault.
Here.
Commissioner Hendricks. Commissioner Lapine. Commissioner Overbey.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Vice Chair Wagner.
Here.
Chair Sullivan.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Commissioner Chapin, seconded by Commissioner Boyd. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. On to item 1.3, approval of the minutes from the March 27th, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Overbey,
Second.
seconded by Vice Chair Wagner. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. That brings us on to item number 2, committee reports. Quite a few updates here tonight. So starting with item 2.1, the Community Development Advisory Committee. Vice Chair, take it away.
Thank you, Joseph. Would you project the slide that you have, the Excel slide, please? Excellent, thank you. So I had the pleasure of serving on the Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee, and we met probably 4 or 5 times from December through January, and our goal was to divvy out money from HUD that is allocated for state and local authorities. So we are obviously doing it for the city of East Lansing. This money is earmarked for low to middle income residents. And we met one night just to, meet each other, get the task, get our goals. And then we were sent the applications from all the different organizations in the city. So it was really wonderful to see all the different types of organizations that are doing good in East Lansing. I'm giving you the highlight, the good parts, and there are a couple of things I found a little bit difficult too that I'll explain. So we got to hear from all these organizations. They came in. If you look at on the left-hand column under CBD agency, the first under public services, those are all the different groups that came. So we basically had 3 different types of money. It's all one pot of money. And if you look at the bottom, it was, I think, $462,000. That was last year's amount. We won't know what we get for this year until, I don't know, May or something like that. So our goal, our task was to basically divvy out roughly $460,000 to different organizations, and then that goes on to committee or to city council for approval. So we're just sort of giving our recommendation. The first, I'm going to talk really quickly about the 3 different pots of money that we had. The first was for the CDBG planning admin. That was sort of easy. It's 20% of the total goes to maintaining the grant from the state or from HUD, and that pays for salaries. There's a lot of back and forth between HUD and the organizations because the organizations have to prove that they are servicing low to middle income clients. So anyway, it's an administration fee that's, I think, well earned. So that's 20%. That was pretty easy, no controversy. Then if you look at the CDGB public infrastructure total, no designated cap, so sort of right above the admin part, no cap. This was money for like big infrastructure. Most of our money, the applicants were the city of East Lansing. Last year, I was on this committee last year as well, and there was a huge debate. So let me stop for 1 second to say I was the representative from the Planning Commission, but there's one representative from each of the commissions, and it was great to meet people from the Parks Commission, from Human Rights, the Housing Commission. I don't know, there were probably 10 or 12 of us, I imagine. So there was a big fight last year between, this is sort of stereotypical, but like the parks people and wanted more money for the parks, and then we had the transportation, someone from the transportation wanted more money for the sidewalks. So we had a big fight. Last year, the parks won, And so we said this year we'd give more money to the sidewalks. So we are doing that. So that's how this amount of money came to be, $340,000. So the spiciest part of all of it was giving money to the top, the public services, because if you can see there, the yellow, it says there's a cap of 15%. So we had, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 different agencies, all worthy, right? All great, doing really great things, come and present. And if I could, I would give them all the money they wanted. But together, they probably wanted about $500,000. And you see the subtotal there is $69,000. So we did a lot of soul searching, arguing, figuring out how to give money to different groups. The HUD money is interesting. It's great for group organizations because they could give it for salaries, which a lot of block grant money is only good for infrastructure or buildings or computers or that sort of thing. So, the court, the 54B district court, for example, wanted, I can't remember how much money they wanted, like $50,000 for some salaries. So we had some back and forth about how much we wanted to give, and then we asked some different groups to come back because, like for the court, for example, it's like, well, we can't give you $50,000, right? That's almost our whole budget. Okay, if we give you 10, you can't pay a lawyer $10,000, right? So anyway, we had some questions for the different groups. My mindset on this was such that I wanted to represent all different types of people in East Lansing. So there's a group called Grit, Glam, and Guts, for example. This is a group for African American girls. It's targeted for high school girls to help them with self-confidence, help them build careers and find role models. And it's fabulous, right? We have stuff, for Meals on Wheels. We had stuff for adult daycare for people who need those sort of services, disabled individuals. And so it was great. And Haven House, obviously, I think everyone knows Haven House is probably the one organization I could have named before being on this committee. So anyway, we had a lot of back and forth, and in the end, this is what we decided on. City Councilwoman Dana Watson was there, and she listened to our recommendations. She had some questions at the end, but I think she was pretty sympathetic to our numbers, and she understands how we got them. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of pushback from council, although they could change whatever they want. So anyway, this is a long way to say I've done this for 2 years. It's been wonderful, and I'm going to pass the torch to someone else. So next year, if anyone wants to do this, it's really great. You learn a lot about a lot of good organizations, and you meet people from other commissions. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Any discussion or questions from commissioners?
I have a question for Ed.
Commissioner Overbey?
So
Sure.
the money for park improvements, for parks and recreation, what was that earmarked for? Do you know?
I do. That was for Emerson Park. Emerson Park, right? It's one of the only parks south of Grand River,
Right.
and it's over by the Flower Pot neighborhood. So it was for, I think, I actually don't know all the specifics, but I think they built one half of a track, an all-abled track with the last round of money, and they want to finish the track and put in some trees like cherry trees and I think things with edible fruit, and maybe some playground equipment for like handicapped accessible stuff. So
I've seen the plan, as you
Yeah.
might guess, and it's
Yeah.
really very nice park.
yeah, I know. It's like, oh, I want to give them all the money they want, and
I
then
know.
and the sidewalks is for the sidewalks along John R. because they redid Bircham by the middle school, and they put in that safety crosswalk, and they want to continue it. It's another great thing. But each of they want to do wheelchair accessible. I don't know, like sidewalks where it goes to meet the road, but that's like $80,000 per intersection. So
I know.
it's a lot of money.
We could
But
spend all this money on sidewalks.
yeah, exactly. We could definitely. I mean, if you've been around East Lansing, you could tell that we need a
Yes.
lot of sidewalk repair. Yeah. So anyway,
Thank you, Ed.
sure.
Seeing no further discussion, I think I speak for all of us when I say appreciate all the work you did on this. It sounds like you did a really big deep dive, and appreciate the overview of all these different organizations and the good work that they're doing. And whoever steps in your shoes has a lot to live up to for the next cycle. So thank you.
I hope I can.
All right, I think that brings us on to item 2.2, the Comprehensive Plan Update Coordinating Committee. Landon, do you want to give an overview of this, or do you want me to? I defer to you.
I guess I'll give a very brief overview of the committee has met twice so far, first at the end of March, and then again last Thursday, the 18th. The meetings have been fairly fast, and I would say jam-packed. We've kept them to about an hour. So far, that's not going to be the case now that we have our calendar adopted. I think that we're going to. So basically, the committee has met a couple times to take care of a lot of housekeeping items. Got a presentation from our student group who's going to be presenting to you this evening as well, and set the calendar. There have been some questions about Open Meetings Act requirements, but that committee is not subject to the requirements of the Open Meetings Act, but it has a imperative to at least try to be as close to as possible. So we were able to meet virtually last week, but the rest of the meetings will be in person here at Hannah Community Center. And all the dates will be out on our website, the Comprehensive Plan website, I should say, which is cityofelastlansing.com/plan update. There's a little section right now that I think is called Dream Play Build right now, but it's going to be turned into event calendar, and we're going to have the committee meetings, but also workshops and speakers and other events that we're going to be hosting and involved in this update. So I've had a great time so far. I wonder how the commissioners who are representing, if you have any feedback or comments.
I think it's been great so far. I was sitting here checking off all the boxes of things that we've discussed as you said them, so good work there. And I look forward to what the output's going to be and what the process is of all the stakeholders and commissioners that are participating. So lots of fun times ahead, so appreciate all the work you're doing there as well. So.
Commissioner Denault, you got anything?
Commissioner Denault?
You're giving me a thumbs up, but
Yeah, that's all. Thumbs up.
that's good by me.
It's
Yeah.
pretty confusing signal, you know. Are you raising your hand or just doing a thumb? Yeah. Just kidding.
With the smile, I
With
think
the
it's a
smile.
100% confirmed thumbs up. It's
any-
been very enjoyable.
Commissioner Overbey?
Well, the comment I would like to make is the difficulty of managing a group of this size and having discussion and moving the group forward. And Landon, you've done a yeoman's job in managing this group, and I look forward to our activities as we move
I
forward.
did appreciate that the commission, when you formed the group, put a cap at 30 people. So,
I-
because I think over 30 people would have gotten a little bit unwieldy, but we're making it work. I do want to mention, I guess, did you have any other comments, Mr. Overbey? I don't want to
I'm
step on
done.
your
Thank
toes, but Commissioner Overbey. I did want to mention that our next scheduled, I guess, public meeting is going to be on May 9th, 11:30 to 1. It's a lunchtime speaker. Dr. Rex Lamore is the director of MSU's Center for Community and Economic Development. And that's going to be at Eastminster Presbyterian Church up at, on Abbott, I want to say 1300 block of Abbott, on the west side of the street. So we are asking for registration, and you can register online. It is free, but if you go to our website, again, cityofelastlansing.com/plan update, you should be able to register for that now on Eventbrite. But Dr. Lamore is going to essentially help us look through the previous code and sort of understand, hey, we're doing a comprehensive plan update, not a new comprehensive plan, but an update, and how do we make sure we can sort of live with that limited scope. That has been a common effort quite a bit, including for members of the committee. Like, man, I would just want to do a whole new comprehensive plan for this city. We have so much we want to see. When are we going to talk about this stuff? When are we going to have time to discuss this? We're just moving through. And yeah, the process is moving quickly right now. But I guess time to discuss in detail is coming. We have sort of our topical months. But also the scope is limited. It is an update, and it's not a new comprehensive plan. And the commission talked about that in November when you directed staff to go forward and update and amend and not create a new one. Just because a lot of we know that the 2018 plan is adopted, has a lot of good goals and vision implementation steps. Those don't need to be thrown out, but a lot has still changed in the last 5 years. So again, it's an update. We're looking at what needs to be updated in the comprehensive plan and what can stay. So May 9th at lunch, free lunchtime, I should say. It's a brown bag lunch, so we hope that people will bring their lunches, but we will have some light refreshments, which I got some heat for because the refreshments didn't show up for our Dream Play Build session. But we'll have refreshments at all the sessions from now on, so I'm very excited about that. Any questions about the comp plan committee before we move on from anyone on the commission?
Questions or comments?
I appreciate your comments, commissioners who are serving, so thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add, it's helpful that we're all coming, all 30 of us, with our unique perspectives and goals and plans for the city, and, you know, of course, focusing on what our lane can be for reviewing what the plan is and making some modifications to that going forward. So again, thank you for your work on that. All right, that brings us on to item 2.3. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Chapin for a mass timber study update.
Just a real quick update. We meet for the third time tomorrow. We haven't met since in the interim between our last planning commission meeting, so I don't really have an update. I'd say the committee's active. Landon's prepared a nice packet for us for tomorrow's meeting, and I think the mass timber subcommittee will be in front of the planning commission in the near term. What that looks like is to be determined, but we're moving along, and third meeting of three of I think four originally is scheduled for tomorrow at 5. That's all I have.
If I can just add
Sure,
on to that
please.
too. I think you summarized it perfectly. So yeah, I've been very impressed with this commission or committee personally. I think it's exactly the right committee to be talking about this stuff. We've gone to the STEM building at MSU, MSU's campus. We had some subject matter experts telling us what is mass timber, how does it work, what are sort of our opportunities here, and the charge of the committee tomorrow is going to be, okay, let's actually decide what ordinance language are we going to recommend that the Planning Commission reviews next. So my hope is that we'll be, if all goes well tomorrow, we'll be introducing language to have the City Council introduce and refer to you at their meeting on May 14th, possibly May 21st, but we'll see. We'll have a public open house at some point, probably early June, and then the goal would be to have the Planning Commission review this at your first June meeting, which would be, I want to say June 10th. I think it's June 12th, actually. Early June, but the idea would be that we'd be reviewing with an initial public hearing the actual ordinance, proposed ordinance language changes at that time, and then take a vote to recommend to council. If all goes well, we could see a new ordinance by the end of summer. But we'll see.
Very good. Great.
So, anything else you wanted to add?
Good, perfect.
Commissioner Chapin? Okay, great.
So thanks for your update and for your work on that, and we look forward to the presentation coming up. All right, seeing no further discussion, that takes us to item 2.4. Mr. Bartley, it's an appointment for a representative of the Planning Commission to the Age-Friendly Communities Committee.
Yes, this is really designed for the commissioners who are just feeling left out because they're not on a committee. I'm looking over that under the table, but so we do have a Age-Friendly Communities Committee that's been in place quite some time. I would say probably 5 years. They were convened by the Seniors Commission to do an Age-Friendly Communities work plan, and that was done in 2020. They have been meeting sporadically since then, but essentially at this point, the goal of the Age-Friendly Communities Committee is to review that work plan. Is I would say quite parallel to what we're doing with the comprehensive plan, where they're looking at their work plan and wanting to see, hey, what's changed in the last 5 years? Should we be updating our work plan much, or is it good to keep going? But over the course of time, the committee has gotten smaller. Originally, it was intended, I wouldn't say quite to be the size of the comprehensive plan committee, but to be larger with more, I guess, sort of diverse views from across the city. So they are requesting additional appointments, or I guess assignments by various boards and commissions to the Age-Friendly Communities Committee. It does meet bi-monthly on Thursday mornings, 8:30. I think the next meeting is June. I'm blanking on the date right now, but the committee is seeking a representative from the Planning Commission to attend their bi-monthly meetings and sort of represent the commission in age-friendly, I guess, happenings. I think that there are, like I mentioned, there are some parallels between the comp plan committee and the age-friendly committee. I don't think that that means that a comp plan committee member should also be assigned to the age-friendly committee, but I think that there is some good opportunity for sort of reporting from both and making and sort of coordinating. This will be a good opportunity to make sure that the work that's being done in both committees is coordinated, and that's a role that this representative could play. So with that, I'd look for nomination or assignment, or however you'd like to do. Chair, it's technically your call, but how do you want to assign somebody to this committee?
Yeah, before we open discussion, so bi-monthly, just to clarify, that's every other month, right?
Yes.
Not twice a month. And it looks like the meeting time is Thursdays, third Thursday of the month at 8:30 a.m.,
Yes.
right? So unfortunately, that would preclude me from doing it because the main legislative committee that I attend is during that time. So I guess at this point, we should open it up to commission members to see who's interested and wants to step forward and volunteer. Not looking at any particular end of the table or side of the table.
I mean, if it was the night committee, I could do that, but
Yeah.
8:30 during
Yeah.
the work schedule is not going to work for me.
Right.
It is difficult, and I should mention, I said the wrong date originally. The schedule for the remainder of 2024 is May 16th, July 18th, September 19th, and November 21st. So there is a meeting in May, not June.
Yeah, I think the meeting times are on the link in our agenda packet for the letter.
Yeah, 8:30 a.m., executive conference room here in the Hancock Community Center.
Unfortunately, I already have a conflict for 2 of the 4 of those, including the first one, so
Okay. For what it's worth, too, we have had a couple situations where, for example, with the comp plan committee, where we've had a board or commission say, we have a representative, but they're going to be on maternity leave in whatever month. So we've sort of assigned 2 people to tag team, just knowing that if somehow it comes down to a question of a vote, then the body would only be given 1 vote. So you could have, I guess I'm just trying to say, there could be 2 commissioners that could sort of go as backup to the other if needed.
I'd be willing to do that if somebody wants to do it with me. I know I can't do the 16th of May or the 19th of September. I hate to make a commitment, I know I already can't do half of them. It doesn't
Understood.
seem
Yeah,
right.
it truly is a
It-
tough meeting time, I think. But it sounds like we have potentially half of an appointment, if anybody's interested in.
I do think it would be better to have one person do it, but I'd be willing to do it with someone else.
You know, my schedule is a little more open than others. I have a little more gray hair, so you guys are all thinking about me at the end of the table, I'm sure
I
of
wasn't
that.
even looking at this. side of the
All
table.
right.
I mean, you can do my job for me at 8:30 in the morning if you want. I'll
I
do it.
couldn't do that nearly as well as you, so I don't want to do that. But Cynthia, I will be the other half. If we could do half and half and share it, that would be good.
That would work well.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
All
My
right.
mass timber responsibilities will be over and done with, won't they, Landon? All right.
All right,
Commissioner
so-
Chapin will be aching for a committee, so this will
Yeah,
help.
he'll be-
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now,
We'll be
my
looking forward to
schedule's a
those
little more
updates.
flexible than others, so be it. We're sharing it.
So
All right.
Landon, how about we split it between 2 people, and I'm thinking Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Chapin potentially.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
For no reason at all. So, all right. So it's
Appreciate that.
been settled. No, but seriously, thanks for your commitment and ability to volunteer for that. We all appreciate it.
Yeah, Cynthia and I deserve credit for moving this meeting along rather
Yeah.
than a long pause that would have continued and continued, so,
I would have just kept
All
pausing.
right.
So
all right.
it
So be
works. So.
It's good work, I'm sure of that, so.
All right, that settles it. So I think we're on to staff reports. Item 3.1, the student engagement report for the 2024 East Lansing Comprehensive Plan Update.
Yes.
I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I've been very happy to work with this group of students. It looks like we're missing 2 of them, but we've had a group of students, 5 urban planning students in their generally their last semester of work here, and their capstone project has been to do student engagement for our comprehensive plan during the spring semester. And for what it's worth, I've just been really impressed with your work. I think you guys have done a great job, and great presentation last week. I'm very excited to have you guys present again to this group and live online so that we can have people following along, streaming, see what you've done. So do you guys have the link? Are you able to pull up your presentation and go from there? Okay, wonderful.
Yes, thank you for that introduction, Landon. We are the MSU Student Practicum team. If you all remember back to January, we were at the meeting here, first meeting of the year, and we came with a proposal to you about a student engagement project to contribute to the 2024 Comprehensive Plan update. And we are back here today to present our findings from that engagement and what we recommend the city look into going forward with this comprehensive plan update. And with that, my name is Hannah Prince.
I'm Jordan Swiler.
And I'm Andrew Arbaugh.
And we'll get into our presentation.
Okay. So as Landon was saying, you guys are all in the middle of updating the comprehensive plan for 2024. Oh, it's not showing.
It didn't update. Just seems to be frozen.
Okay.
We can do it.
Okay, I'm not really sure why it's like that, but anyways, our job was to engage with students in different topics as it relates to this comprehensive plan update. And we did this in a couple of different ways, through in-person engagement as well as online engagement. And I'll talk about those in a second.
We'll just have to do it small screen.
Okay. Yeah, so at the beginning of this project, we came in and with a target number of 385 students to become statistically significant of the MSU population, and we we surpassed this greatly at getting 508 students totally reached. We did this through a survey online, digitally, and in-person workshops. Okay, so a little bit more about that student engagement survey. We reached 164 students with this survey, and we asked 3 demographic questions to help identify any trends throughout the students, and we had 13 focus questions. This is an example of a focus question on the screen. We asked different topics depending on what we were trying to get at as it relates to the comprehensive plan update, and then an importance scale underneath each of these questions to help gauge how students felt on these topics. And then at the end, we had 2 open-ended questions to help get any information that students might have thought we missed out on in these 13 questions. There's things that you like about East Lansing as well as things that you would like to change in the future about East Lansing. So a little bit, we had a QR tracking on this survey. We distributed our survey through QR codes all around East Lansing, MSU campus, social media. We had QR codes that we handed out, and we also had referrals. So referrals and social media overall did better than the other modes of media that we handed out, but yeah, I think that our survey was largely successful in the end. And then our first in-person workshop was a sticky note workshop where we set up in high traffic student areas, such as the library and different halls. It basically works as students walk by, they see us set up at a table with this board here on the screen, and they can write down anything that they like or would like to change about East Lansing. And in total, over the course of the semester, we had 10 of these type of workshops reaching 241 students. And the second type of in-person engagement we had was our discussion workshop, where we entered 3 different classrooms this semester, and had the students break down into smaller groups and just have open discussions about different topics and things that they like about East Lansing and things that they'd like to change, and just kind of have an open dialogue about these topics. We had a total of 98 students over this semester in these 3 classes.
Yeah, and so it was through all of this engagement, reaching over 500 students this semester, that we were able to determine 4 main areas of focus that are important to students for this comprehensive plan update. And that was housing, transportation, economy and recreation, and community wellness, all of which relate to some overlying tenet currently in the comprehensive plan update. The first topic we are going to get into is housing. And that was a big one for students. We received several dozen comments on housing, and one of the main concerns for students was affordability. Affordability is at the forefront of the national conversation on housing, and this is reflected in students' opinions of East Lansing. We asked students in our digital survey about how they felt towards the adequacy of affordable housing in East Lansing, and they rated this a 2 out of 5. Similarly, in our in-person workshops, nearly 50% of comments on housing desired greater housing affordability, particularly when it comes to being near campus, near the downtown area. So we started by looking at what we heard and then dived into the details. What did we find? When we're trying to understand housing affordability in an area, we often start by looking at the area median income, which for East Lansing in 2022 was around $44,000 a year. But when we compare that to the median income of householders under 25 in East Lansing, that was only around $21,000 a year. So because the overwhelming majority of MSU students fit that category of under 25, this was the metric we used in determining housing affordability. Similarly, most students are renters as compared to homeowners. So we looked at the median annual rents as opposed to the median annual housing payments. And what we found was quite interesting. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development identifies households that spend more than 30% of their income on housing as cost burdened, and additionally identifies households as spending more than 50% of their income as severely cost burdened. Well, when we took that under 25 median income and the median rent for 2022 in East Lansing, we found that at least half of householders under 25 are spending 57% of their income on housing. So we can see why this might be a problem for students, at least coming from the supply side, or the demand side. And when we look at what tools the local government has to help ameliorate this problem, it's usually more to do with zoning and regulation. So what we did is looked at tools that the city can incorporate into the zoning language to help increase options for affordable housing. One of these tools is the allowance of accessory dwelling units. Currently, the city allows accessory dwelling units in its neo-traditional neighborhood zones, but we're recommending the city expand this language to other zones with a particular focus on the downtown area or near campus. But one of the benefits of this is it could be tailored very specifically to meet the needs of the city. For those of us who may or may not know, an accessory dwelling unit is well described as a subordinate dwelling unit on the same lot as a primary unit. It typically takes the form of an improved garage, or maybe it's a basement apartment or a loft that someone renovates and wants to rent out. And they come with several benefits. It's an opportunity for homeowners to stay in their home and benefit from rental income. It promotes home ownership and rental options simultaneously. It preserves the character of the neighborhood because we're not building, big apartment buildings, and we're not consuming additional open space. So it's something that can work well in the existing neighborhoods here in East Lansing. In addition to this, it encourages renovation and revitalization of existing housing stock. The second tool we looked at were community benefits agreements. And what this looks like is it's a contract between the city and a local developer, and in exchange for providing some public goods such as affordable housing, the city offers relaxed zoning or funding support or other public support measures. Again, this can be tailored to meet the specific needs of a community and encourages community involvement on projects. And what you'll find is an underlying tenet of all of these is they're flexible and tailorable. And Traditionally, this sort of agreement has actually typically been between nonprofits and local developers, but recently we've seen cities like Ypsilanti and Detroit leading the way and incorporating this directly into their zoning ordinance. One example that I thought was really good was in 2020, the city of Ypsilanti offered a developer to make smaller payments in lieu of taxes, or a pilot program, on rent revenue for providing affordable housing to tenants that make less than 60% of the area median income. So in exchange for reserving some of those homes on this development to low-income families or householders, they received lower fees. So this is kind of on the development side of things, encouraging that building of affordable housing. So just to reiterate, we recommend the city look into incorporating those flexible zoning options into the ordinance that support these diverse housing options, including ADUs, community benefits agreements, and to continue to allow and encourage the city's planned unit development and mixed-use zoning that's already in the ordinance that can allow for more creative development and design in housing. Our second main concern on housing was that students had concerns about housing quality. They rated this 3 out of 5 on our survey, and nearly 25% of our comments on housing desired an improvement in quality. The city's main avenue, and traditional avenue really, for ensuring housing quality is through code enforcement. East Lansing already requires annual yearly inspections of rental units. What we are proposing in addition to that is to look into more cooperative code enforcement measures and continue to support home improvement programs. So some of these cooperative measures might include direct subsidies to landlords, tax incentives, discounts for municipal fees in exchange for approaching the office for needed repairs, as well as the city can promote improvement grants such as the State Emergency Relief Fund, MISHDA Home Improvement Program, and other home improvement grants through HUD and the USDA are available for things of this nature.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Hannah. Another one of the major topics that we surveyed students on was transportation. And what we heard back revolved a lot around off-campus transportation and the availability thereof. In fact, around 61% of the respondents' responses that we heard involving transportation mentioned public transit or, again, just overall off-campus transportation to some extent. When we looked further into why this might be, what we found is that it might not be so much a matter of what is currently offered, but more so a matter of students' understanding and awareness of the CATA system that's already in place. In fact, we were able to identify 10 routes that currently run through Michigan State's campus and connect riders to nearby apartments, grocery stores in major neighboring cities such as Okemos, Hazlitt, and Holt. While we believe that that is a sufficient number, we do believe that there is slight room for improvement with the CATA system. What we would recommend is a strict frequency of 30 minutes for these routes that run, the 10 routes. We want to see them run every 30 minutes, and we would also like to see them made more available on the weekends. Those particular routes are highlighted in our report. Furthermore, in order to address that gap in off-campus transportation, we believe that there is an opportunity for a rideshare program here in the city of East Lansing. We sort of borrowed this idea from the Ohio State University, who currently in partnership with Lyft offers a $4 discounts to students who are riding to or from campus. Where we sort of adjusted that idea from Ohio State is we would like to see both the city of East Lansing and their public school students, as well as Michigan State University students benefit from that partnership. So we would like to see them put their resources together and combine with a rideshare company to offer discounts to students, public school who may be having to arrive to school early because a parent is working, or maybe participating in extracurriculars after school. We believe those are people who can benefit from that, and we would also like to see, again, that off-campus transportation issue that we heard a lot from Michigan State University students addressed. So again, just to summarize, we would like to see an educational and advertising campaign for the CATA system here in East Lansing. Again, an improvement of the frequencies of the run times and weekend availability, and the possible implementation of that rideshare program. Furthermore, when it came to transportation, the second most common response that we heard was students and pedestrian friendliness in East Lansing. They want to see an enhancement in the environment when it comes to people who walk or bike. And when we looked further into why that might be, what we found aligned with what we heard. So as you can see here, this is a map highlighting 2022 crash data that involved pedestrians in the city of East Lansing. And again, the spots that we see here, particularly along Abbott and Grand River, are spots that we heard from students they feel unsafe walking or biking. We've identified the high-risk zones, and what we would like to see implemented is sort of that pedestrian-friendly infrastructure that includes high-visibility crosswalks as well as extended bike lanes. As you can see here, these high-visibility crosswalks give people who are crossing more space from cars, as well as makes the crosser more visible to oncoming traffic. And again, just those bike lanes, it sort of does a better job separating bikers from oncoming traffic. So again, to summarize, we'd just like to see those high visibility crosswalks and improved bike lanes. One thing that I did not mention was rapid flashing rectangular beacons. We would like to see those implemented as well along crosswalks in the high-risk spots that we identified. Another one of the major topics that we engaged with students on was economy and business and entertainment. What we heard from students, to summarize it, was really they want more variety downtown. Students, we heard a lot about how the entertainment options currently revolve around bars and having to be 21 to participate in that entertainment. We also heard a lot about the retail sector and how they want to see more diversity. When we looked further into that, what we found was, again, aligned with what we heard. Currently, 54% of the retail sector in East Lansing revolves around food, and 58% of those food options are fast food chains or chain restaurants. So what we would like to see, again, is just a more diverse retail sector here in the city of East Lansing. More entertainment that doesn't require you to be 21, such as interactive art studios was one of the recommendations that we heard. Indoor or outdoor movie theaters, fresh food markets, street entertainment such as concerts. One thing that came up quite a bit in our feedback and engagement was how popular Albert al Fresco is currently among students. And as we understand it, there's currently some ongoing discussion surrounding Albert al Fresco. In fact, there was actually an article that came out the night before that we submitted our report that sort of highlighted the discussion that's currently ongoing. But we can assure you that that is something that students really enjoy and they want to see possibly, expanded even. So I'll go ahead and pass that over to Hannah.
Yeah, so our final topic that we really looked into in this entire project was community wellness, and this included anything from health, safety, or the environment. And what we found was students actually feel really good about the environment and the green space that's available in East Lansing. There's lots of green space on campus. They really love the community. They like that it's a college town and it has the presence of MSU. Students really love that. But one of the overwhelming desires that we heard in this focus area was that students want better access to fresh, healthy, and affordable foods. This is a highly important topic and relevant topic all over the country, but nearly 30% of our workshop comments talked about this, and 2 out of 5 MSU students reported experiencing food insecurity in 2020, according to the National College Health Assessment. So in order to look more into this, we wanted to figure out what are the existing networks here in the East Lansing area. And the main one is the Capital Area Food Council, which oversees the Tri-County area. So that's Clinton, Eaton, and Ingham counties. They partner with several different organizations to oversee food. As far as food donation centers, we have the Capital Area Food Bank and the MSU Food Bank, which is available to students. But we really feel like East Lansing could benefit from their own specific local commission on food. The city already has several commissions to handle varying topics, and this should be one of them. With the establishment of a local commission on food, this commission could work to identify partnerships to reduce food waste and food insecurity. They can work to create a community food profile and analyze food waste. They can distribute educational material on food sources, food preparation, and food waste by working with local organizations such as MSU Extension, as well as the existing food banks and the Capital Area Food Council. And in addition to this, the council could work to support local growers through channels that already exist, like the East Lansing Farmers Market. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and we'd now like to open it up to questions.
Any discussion, questions from commissioners? I'll start it off. First off, great presentation, and I really like the materials that you provided online. It's really quite extensive, 85 pages long, a lot of good info, summarizing all the categories. It's a great start off for us as we're undergoing the comprehensive master plan update. I'm curious about the community benefits agreement. It looked like you noted IPSI does that. Is there any communities near us that have done that? Has East Lansing ever done that?
Yes, so the idea of the community benefits agreement contract being integrated into the zoning ordinance is a bit of a recent one. Both Detroit and Ypsilanti, to our knowledge, have incorporated this into their zoning ordinance, and it's worth checking out both because they're worded a little bit differently. Detroit's is more to ensure environmental quality in the development of projects, and Ypsilanti has taken more of a, at least so far in the applications, has taken more of an affordable housing approach. But the effects of these remain to be seen a little bit in the types of applications that are coming through. But yes, typically it's between a nonprofit and developer. It'll be like a contract to include some sort of benefit.
Great, thanks for the overview. Commissioner Denault, were you raising your hand?
I did. And I just want to commend you all again for a wonderful presentation, right? This is the second time that we've seen it. We saw it at the comprehensive plan meeting as well. And I think it really speaks to the depth of your research that I have questions even again, right? Seeing it a second time. So I was really interested in your comments about housing quality. And I think I'm especially interested in, have you considered any ways that residents, right, like ourselves, who are really invested in the neighborhoods that we live in and, right, pay taxes, so like we're invested emotionally and we're invested financially in the places that we live in, that we share with you. Is there a way that residents can help hold landlords accountable on behalf of renters, right? Can we be allies to you?
Yeah, I think that's a great point because one of the main concerns that students brought up was, well, oftentimes they feel like they're not around long enough to make a difference, or they fear not having their lease renewed for something of that nature. So I think it's definitely an important point to bring up about allies in the community. Currently, the city does have an avenue for contacting code enforcement on issues that people believe are a problem. I think that's the main avenue right now, but as far as opening that up, maybe making people more aware of the channels to report things like that, I think that would be a good first step.
Yeah, or even making it, right, easier, like
Yes.
like being able to like take pictures right on your phone and fill out the form that way. Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, making it more digitally integrated, particularly for students. What we found is digital social media was one of the best ways to reach students, and we have a hunch that might be the best way for them to reach the city as well. So,
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Vice Chair?
I have more of a comment rather than a question, but thank you. A lot of this is very, very detailed. I enjoyed reading it. And you're spot on with a lot of things, right? Like the ADUs, the Planning Commission has been talking about them, City Council has been talking about them, so they are something that we are considering for sure. And the other thing that I was looking through some of these pictures, I suddenly remembered, I was looking at the transportation section with the high-vis crosswalks and the barricades for safe biking lanes. I suddenly remembered that on Bogue Street we had, does anyone remember this? It's like 5 years ago, we like someone created a bike lane that had these structures, so the safe biking lanes, and they called it just a trial or something, and I don't know what happened to it. It went away, and which I thought was a shame because I thought it was exactly like you're talking about. Like people used it, they were popular. So this can just sort of remind us, like we have done some of the stuff, we have started it, but I think it is good to pick it up again and think about this when we're making updates to the comprehensive plan. So thank you guys.
Absolutely. Commissioner Denault?
That actually brings up a question that I have. I recall, I think you emphasized this more in the presentation you did for the comprehensive plan update committee. was the level of safety that pedestrians and bikers feel, especially on Grand River, right? So maybe this is more of a question for Landon. Grand River, as I understand it, I know our neighborhood has been trying to talk to the city since I've lived in Glencairn about speeding on Grand River, and we've always been told, like, this is a state trunkway and we can't do anything about it. I'm wondering if any improvements, especially regarding pedestrian safety on Grand River, is that something we can even do, right? Do we have to start working with the state on that?
It's a mixed bag, and yes, we have to work with the state on that. Some consolation, I guess, is that the question of speeding on Grand River, in particular, of noisy cars, has been coming up a lot recently, and I would say that the city council is very aware of the issue. Beyond that, it's hard to speak to, honestly. But I'd love to bring into some planning department conversations about what we could do with Grand River, but that's for a different conversation, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point, though, because we have to focus on what we can do as a community, but of course, there's legal restrictions and state trunk lines and whatnot, so.
I
good
live
point.
right on Grand River, and I see bikers all the time riding on the sidewalks instead, because those bike lanes are so tiny. So I'd love to see these, like, protected lanes, but yeah, I just don't know if we can.
Yep.
Couple of
Commissioner
comments.
Overbey?
Well, one is sort of a question. I mean, doesn't the city of East Lansing have the ability to issue speeding citations on Grand River? I mean, can't they do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Because we act like we're totally helpless, and I would argue that that's one way to try and address the issue of speeding, although we see that all over the city. My second comment has to do with quality and affordability of housing, and you've addressed that, and you have my full support on that issue. What frustrates me, and part of our struggle in that issue, is housing. Much of it is controlled by landlords who are in this to make a buck, and I think one of your slides was that the students are paying $12,000 a year for rent. That's $1,000 a month, and so any solution to that has to, by definition, include drawing in the landlords, many of whom are absentee, and I think you understand that dilemma better than I do. So I make that comment just to address the difficulty, and I think we should try to address it, but it's going to be a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, completely agreed. It's a huge issue, and one we will continue to focus on with this comprehensive master plan and otherwise. Seeing no,
Just a
Mr.
quick
Chapin?
comment. I just think the quality of your report and the data and the relevance of the data really will have some lasting power. And that's really, I think, from my perspective, a really significant compliment. I look for it to be embedded in a strategic plan. I think it's very useful data and information, and well done.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Williams?
I don't have the page of your report, but I remember a comment about student concerns being shared about predatory leasing practices. It didn't really go into that in depth, but I know that some communities have worked on recommendations and requirements around leasing, and I'm wondering if that is anything that you looked at, building in certain requirements or prohibiting certain languages in leases for student apartments. Is that something that you heard about or something you considered?
Yeah, so we did receive a few comments regarding leasing and property management practices. In the scope of this report, we didn't go in depth in that particular topic as far as like leasing language goes, but making the city aware that it's an issue to look into, as well as something to explore a little further. I believe we got a few comments on that, but it was limited in the details and the specifics that we were able to get from students, as well as knowing what the different leases in the community currently have in their language can be a little bit hard to assess. But we definitely think it's an area of interest for students and that looking into it further would be beneficial.
I just remember accompanying a group of sophomore students at MSU several years ago who were very concerned about getting in before it was too late in a particular new housing development. And I just observed some behavior I thought was fairly heavy-handed. And I think I stepped in and said, well, you know, isn't there an opportunity to rescind this if this particular student, for example, finds out she can't afford it after speaking to her parents, but is clearly concerned about not wanting to miss out. That's not in your lease. I don't see it in your lease. Couldn't it be put in your lease? And it was like, oh, that's a state law. We can't put it in the lease, which I thought was very strange, a strange response. So I know that there are some other communities that have universities who have looked at those kinds of suggestions, and I just thought that might have been something that came up. So thanks for your response, and just overall, thank you for your work. It was really a good read, really interesting, some very good suggestions. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further discussion, thank you once again for your presentation. That brings us on to, brings us on to item 3.2, the 2023 Planning Commission Annual Report.
And
Landon?
just before we do that, I just wanted to say that, yeah, we've been finding sort of in our follow-ups from seeing the student engagement report, we've been looking at sort of prevailing rents, and it generally is 1,000 a bedroom at minimum. There are some exceptions, but that's where we're at right now. We really appreciated the sort of reframing the percent AMI and like, are you cost burdened? And when the population of East Lansing is limited by to 25 and below, boy, that number changes, and you have 57% of, or I might be conflating the numbers, but you know, when students are paying 57% of their income towards rent, that's an issue. That's twice the sort of guideline for affordable housing that HUD publishes. So that was we really appreciated that sort of exercise and sort of saying, hey, let's try to focus on really who's being affected by these housing prices. I want to mention that the report in full and the poster and the video of this presentation will be posted on our website, cityofeastlansing.com/plan-update. I want to make sure everyone has that memorized by the time we leave this meeting today. And also, the poster is posted right now on the second floor of City Hall. We've had everyone that's come in to get their permits goes, oh, look at that, and then usually has some comments of how interesting or boy, this is really good work. So wanted to pass that on. Thank you. As far as I guess I'll move on then to the annual report.
Please
as you tried to get me to go to. Let me share my screen real quick with that annual report. Here we are. So the City Council requests, or I should say, we provide an annual report as a matter of procedure every year to the City Council about every board and commission that is staffed by the city, of which I think we have 29, and I really appreciated the students' recommendation to add a 30th. So let's make that number of commissions nice and round at 30. But as long as the planning department doesn't have to staff the food commission, I'm good with it. So I just wanted to point out a couple items in this planning annual report. For this planning commission, you have the list of who was on last year and a little bit of discussion about the different functions of the planning commission. There had been a question of, hey, how many cases were actually reviewed, were there decisions or recommendations made? In 2023, the commission met 17 times. There were 7 cancellations or non-meetings because of holidays. Over those 17 times, you reviewed or made recommendations to City Council 12 times. And most of your reviews were site plan reviews and special use permits, totaling 83% between the two of them. 41% were site plans and 42% special use permits, and then the balance, the 17%, were for rezoning requests. What I wanted to call out was you met 17 times, you had 7 of those meetings canceled, and then the city code requires public hearings by both planning commission and city council for all land use requests. So actually for those 12 items that you made recommendations on, there were a total of 22 public hearings. The planning commission recommended approval of 11 out of 12 requests and denial of 1. City council approved 7 of those and denied the rest, so denied 5 total out of those 12 land use applications. And then 4 applications were administratively approved in 2023. Administrative authority, I should say, I guess, to approve without taking a case to the commission is quite limited. So 4 is not too bad out of a total of 16, I guess. And then there had been a question at one point about where are these land use requests coming from? Where are we seeing the majority of requests as far as neighborhoods go? I didn't really break this down by official neighborhoods in some cases, but Bailey was sort of one of the most active, 21% of applications, as was downtown. I kind of lumped in requests north of Lake Lansing is Northern Tier, and that was also a 21% of requests, and then the balance were across around Abbott and Saginaw, Lake Lansing in the 127 area, Trowbridge Road, and then near M78 and Merritt. So, any questions about that annual report? Thoughts? I'm not sure if I don't believe the city council has seen it yet, but I think it's on their next council agenda. So, I'll be looking through it too. Yes, Commissioner Overbey.
Do we have a sense of why the city council didn't agree with our recommendations in the cases where they did not?
It's hard to say. Typically, they'll give some reasons in their resolution to take action. It's not typically specified, like in response or in reaction to a planning commission recommendation.
Right.
It takes it into account, but doesn't specifically respond to it.
I think,
Question?
Chuck, I don't exactly know the answer, but I do know that when we review things, we're looking basically to see whether or not they've met all the requirements for the special use permit.
Right.
And I think, if it's a politically charged or if it's, something different, the city council can take into other considerations rather than do they just meet, A, B, C, and D. So I know there were a couple, certainly, things that I voted yes on, but because they met the criteria, but I didn't really, it was my personal opinion that if I were on council, if I had other things to consider, I probably would have voted differently. But
Yeah, that's a really good summary, actually, just our lens and our purview of looking at the specific criteria of the applications, and they have obviously a much broader focus than we do.
Well, to an extent. I mean, the city council is subject to the same site plan review standards and special use standards as the planning commission is. And they need to take those into account when they make land use decisions, which they've taken, I should say, instead of the planning commission, which usually has zoning commission authority. In this city, it's advisory only. So I would say that, yeah, the city council certainly thinks with sometimes a larger scope than the review standards, if I can leave it there.
Noted. Thank you. All right, seeing no further discussion on this item, I believe that takes us on to item number 4, commissioner announcements. Are there any commissioner announcements? Seeing none, takes us on to item number 5, communications from citizens. Item 5.1, written communications. I didn't see any in the agenda packet. So that takes us to item 5.2, verbal from the audience. So this is the time for members of the public to come forward and address the commission. However, if you are addressing item 6.1, the public hearing for 100 East Saginaw, we ask that you come up at that time. However, any other topic, now is your opportunity. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes and identify yourself on a card that's up there. So at this point, we'll have Deborah Ann Stewart come forward because she's here to speak on agenda item 7.1, which had a public hearing at the last meeting.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Deborah Stewart, a 64-year resident and property owner at Grove Street. And I was sharing some comments from the Stewart family. It's in page 88 of your packet. Just a couple of the key points. Our Stewart family letter continues to be in support for maintaining College Grove as a historic district by maintaining the current R2 single-family zoning for 730 Grove Street, and therefore deny at this time the need and the request for rezoning from R2 to RM32 zoning at this time. We were particularly concerned about the extent of RM32 zoning and the options that it brings. We'd like for the commission to wait for a more appropriate zoning codes to go through approval procedures, and also for the council to research for change in zoning and to see if it's really needed for the final plan of the applicant. As we understand it, the state of Michigan definition for bed and breakfast does allow for single-family zoning areas. We did want to point out, some of you may have known Roger Stewart, who was our father and served on the commissions and both the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission previously over a 15-year period when he was alive with us in East Lansing, and concerned as each of us are about the nature of the neighborhood. I did want to compliment the applicant for his continued interest in providing information to both the commission, and it's very helpful to the neighborhood to have this process. One of the concerns we had was the caretaker. We appreciate that a caretaker was identified in the updated plan, but if it's possible to have someone on site during the time that guests are present, those of us who were the Stewart family only, I'm not representing the neighborhood at this time, but we felt that would help to decrease the possibility of initially becoming a party house initially. At this time, the Planning Commission members, we feel, should wait for a neighborhood and East Lansing Commission and City Council agreement on future rezoning, a better zoning category more consistent with the recommendations from the 2018 Master Plan and the Perspective Developing Comprehensive Plan has been suggested by architect, builder, neighbor, and professor who is also an expert in lead planning, that being green planning, Tim Merzowski. His recommendations have been referred to the city, and we'd hope that you'd review those and have that go through a process of review. We do feel it's critical at this time to maintain current zoning until a more appropriate zoning category goes through procedural proper review and/or state of Michigan definitions, requirements, and possible inspections were considered with the Zoning Board of Appeals. As previously stated, may the Planning Commission members wait for a more appropriate zoning category for the Grove Street area before making rezoning changes to 730 Grove Street. We worry about the precedent that it may set for the neighborhood, which currently is a historic neighborhood. Lastly, we'd like to thank the applicant for his continued communications. And I did want to point out that the area of Grove and Bircham continues to be a hazard. Back in November, a high school student was hit by a car which did not stop. It continues to be an area which is dangerous. The student did recover within a week of the time of the incident, but that continues to be an area of concern. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Is there anybody else that wishes to come forward? Seeing none. Is there anybody online in the queue?
There's nobody waiting within the queue.
All right. At that point, that takes us to item 6.1, first public hearing and only public hearing, consideration of a request to demolish the convenience store, gas pumps, and car wash at 100 East Grand River and reconstruct a new convenience store and gas pumps. Mr. Bartley, since this has been before us before, could you please just give an overview of what the changes are, unless there's any other questions from commissioners?
Sure. So, as you know, this request has been before you in a similar form. This is the southeast corner of Abbott and Saginaw. Request for site plan review of a proposed gas station and special use approval to continue the current gas station use on the property. There is a car wash that's existing. The car wash should be demolished and not replaced, but otherwise the intent is to have a new convenience store and 5 gas pumps. Yeah, without going too deeply into, I guess, the details, I'll say that previously this proposal with some changes, and again, I'll defer the applicant on to sort of explain the changes in some detail. I will myself too in a moment, but a similar proposal was considered by this commission in September of last year, at which time there was no public comment. And then the commission considered the item again in October 11th, and voted 5-1 to recommend approval. The city council then held a public hearing on January 9th, and there were some comments about visibility of the gas pumps from the street, loss of the existing building or building architecture features. And then 2 weeks later, on January 23rd, council denied the request. So in that, according to the zoning ordinance, if a request is not materially different from what was previously proposed, it would have to, there's a 1-year waiting period before the applicant could come back. Our city attorney did review reviewed this plan, and the city attorney's opinion was that this is different enough that we can cut in a new application and have it back before you today for your review and recommendation. One thing I want to mention is today is a public hearing. However, typically the commission doesn't take a vote on the day of the public hearing. Because of the applicant's significant history here at the Planning Commission talking about this property, they have asked that the Planning Commission would consider voting this evening if you're willing to, just, if nothing else, because the process has been going on for a while, and also your next meeting is canceled due to lack of business, so it would be a month before the next meeting. As far as the differences themselves, I'll pull up the site plan, and then I'm going to invite the applicant or the applicant's rep to come up to give some detail on exactly what's changed. Essentially, I'm showing the site plan right now, northeast to the top. And this is the proposed site. As finished, you can see that the previous gas station and pavement, this is what's shown on screen right now. In the hatching would be demolition, which is essentially the entire site. And then the applicant is proposing to construct 5 fuel gas pump islands with a canopy and a C-store of about 4,000 square feet towards the back. They are proposing an electric vehicle charging station up at the northeast corner and an EV-ready parking space. They're proposing a screen wall along the sort of northwest-facing street frontage. And I'll defer the applicant on any additional changes or items that he wants to point out for this application. Any questions from me before we pass it on to our applicant?
Any questions for Mr. Bartley before we move on to the applicant's overview? Seeing none, take it away. Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Steve Whitty from Netterveld. We're the design engineers for the project. With me in attendance tonight is Jason Barris from American Gas and Oil. He's the owner of the property, as well as Chris Meyer from Warner Norcross Judd. First of all, thank you for your time and consideration regarding this request. I know Landon did a great job giving you a verbal overview and then the staff report as well. I also know that about 6 months ago or so you all reviewed this, so I'll kind of keep this brief and kind of hit the highlights from our perspective on what has changed and what transpired since the last time that you reviewed it. As Landon indicated, the Planning Commission did give a favorable recommendation to the City Council. When we went to the public hearing at the City Council, as Landon indicated, what I heard was there was some concern from the public. We didn't really hear from the commission, the council itself, but from the public about a little bit removing the building, but mainly from the visibility of the intersection. So then at the second council meeting, the council denied the request. What I gathered from what I heard, the two main reasons for that, the biggest concern by far was screening of the fuel islands and visibility. They didn't want that completely open. If you remember on the original plan, we were taking out the berm in the clear vision corner, and it was going to be a pretty clear line of sight from the intersection to the fuel island. So that was, in my opinion, their biggest concern. And the second thing, if you listen to the meeting minutes or look at the video from the City Council meeting, they are actually very high on EV charging stations. So we had a pretty lengthy discussion about that. After that discussion with the council, they closed public comment, and then they again voted to deny the request. So in our revised application, we attempted to address their two major concerns. First of all, we added the EV charging station and also an EV ready station at the northeast corner of the site. And then the second and bigger change, in my opinion, is we're adding all along the clear vision corner a 5.5 to 6 foot tall stone wall that will preserve the existing grading in the clear vision corner, but then also provide screening from the intersection to the fuel islands. So there's, in the plans that I resubmitted, on my plan set, I show in red the changes that have been made. And again, on the plan, it doesn't look like a significant change, but in our opinion, it is definitely a significant change because we've, again, addressed the two main items that we heard from the City Council. So again, maybe more minor to that, the other change that we did make is we did provide a little bit more green area between the clear vision corner and the pavement, and the wall for that matter. So there is a little bit, slight reduction in the hard surface area in addition to what we were already providing. If you remember from 6 months ago, the project, it will result in less hard surface area on the site than exists now. I already mentioned the retaining wall and the screen wall that has been added to obscure or to block the view from the intersection. The trees and the landscaping that are proposed, if you remember our discussion from before, there isn't really a whole lot of room on the south end of the property to add shrubs and stuff like that. So we actually moved those shrubs up to the clear vision corner. So those shrubs and the trees will be in front of this screen wall. So in our opinion, it'll be a very attractive appearance from the intersection. And then last, a fairly minor change in my opinion, is we did make some minor tweaks to the building architecture. I know there was some comments at the Planning Commission, and then also a couple of the people on the City Council had mentioned some minor tweaks that could be made to enhance the architecture a little bit. I'm not an architect, so I can't speak the lingo on that, but Jason can get into those details if you're interested in that. And then the last thing I guess I will say is, kind of circling back to the start of this request, we're requesting a special land use for a site that is already used as a gas station. So it's not a new use to the area, it's an existing use. There's actually a car wash on the site right now that's going to be removed. So we're actually reducing the intensity of the site from our opinion. Second thing I'll point out is we're eliminating one of the drive entrances off of Abbott. So we're reducing the access point. In our opinion, that's making it a safer site. So just wanted to kind of point those out, and those are, in my opinion, kind of a bigger picture idea of what we're asking for. And then as Landon indicated, we've been working on this for a long time. We had quite a lengthy delay between the time we were in front of you last, before we got to the City Council. I think there was some omissions or whatever, so we had to wait a long time to get to the City Council. So Jason is very eager to keep the process moving, and then as Landon indicated, with your next meeting being no longer happening, we would respectfully ask you to take action on this tonight and hopefully forward this on to the City Council so we can keep this moving forward. Again, because you're very familiar with the site, and hopefully you're willing to do that for us. So again, thank you for your time on this and consideration on this. If you have any questions on the engineering or the site plan or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to answer those types of questions. And if you have anything business-wise or probably architectural-wise, Jason would be your person there. And again, thank you.
Thank you for your overview. Any discussion from commissioners?
Bill, I have one quick question.
Commissioner Chapin.
If I understand correctly, there is no access to the site from Abbott, but there is now only from Saginaw.
No, there is still going to be access to Abbott. There's an existing access easement that goes along the south property line that provides access from Abbott to the business to the east of us. But right now, there's 2 drive entrances off of Abbott. So the northern drive entrance is going to be removed.
So the one closer to the light.
Correct, and that's typically, you know, the further away from the intersection you get, the better off you are from a safety standpoint and an accessibility standpoint. So if you were going to remove one of the entrances off of Abbott, you definitely want to remove the northern one, which is what we are doing.
Commissioner Boyd?
I just moved to East Lansing about 3 years ago, and this has been an eyesore for me since then. So I've been waiting for this for a while now. I liked your first version. I actually like your second version a little bit better. It kind of reminds me of Hilton Head, South Carolina, where you're putting some shrubs and some trees and kind of hiding that it's a real gas station. One of my concerns with the second version would be, as it's going up, people on the roads or on the sidewalks, security issues of what's going on at the gas station. Are we going to be able to still see?
When you say see, like from the intersection to the fuel islands?
Yes, well, so what I'm looking at here, the elevation kind of goes up, and you have like a truck here, and it's kind of going over the roof of the vehicle. So let's say there's a robbery at that gas station, and I'm walking on the sidewalk over here. Am I going to be able to know what's going on? I'm not going to be able to see in there.
Probably won't. Well, if you're walking, you might, because your eye height then is 5.5, 6 feet tall, so you might see just like the top of people's heads. But the intent of that screen wall again was added because of the city council, and in our perspective at least, what we heard was screening view. So that's why we added the wall for that purpose.
I mean, I like it. I just, one of the things that would be for me would be security issues.
Yep.
If I'm riding my bike around there and bullets are flying, I'm not going to be able to know until one zips by my head.
Yeah, and one thing to comment on that too is that the existing site is screened too.
Right.
So,
yes.
Which is what the city council liked about the site right now. So we're kind of trying to do a compromise and hopefully come to a win-win solution. But I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah, and just on that topic, I think one of the concerns with the site as it is now, with that north exit off of Abbott and the berm kind of being the way that it is, the visibility has always been really tough there and tough to drive out of that site. So as I see in the rendering on page 33, it looks like the stone wall ends, I don't know, it's tough to tell from the rendering how many feet that is, but about 10 feet from Abbott right there. So there is visibility for drivers that are looking to turn, I guess, right or left.
Yeah, the red line again on my plan is where the wall would end. So it's actually 20 feet off the right of way, so you've got a little bit more room where the wall would end.
Okay. And the sidewalk there it's on Abbott?
It is.
There's no like grass median between the sidewalk.
There isn't right now, and if you remember, we actually talked about that at the last meeting and also at the city council briefly about, do we, can we move that sidewalk a little bit further off the road and provide a green space? We can do that, but like I said before, there's some utility concerns. There's a pole in the way, and then to the south of us, the post office actually has the sidewalk in front of them right on the back of the curb too, and there's no way they can move it further off because their parking area is right there.
So, and then from the tallest to the lowest point, which would be on the gas station side of the wall, it looks like on page 38, 39, the wall is about 6 feet tall.
5.5, 6 feet tall is what I'm showing now. On the plan though, I have a top of the wall elevation of 861 or higher. So, I mean, if the city council or planning commission wants that a foot or so higher, we're open to that. But the 6 foot tall seemed correct to us, and then that would obscure again the view from the intersection to the fuel pumps.
And what's the material of the wall? You said stone?
It's going to be, I'm assuming, concrete, but then stone faced.
So stone fabricated?
Yeah.
Out of concrete, okay. Any other questions or comments? No, I think we've,
If I could just add
Please.
a couple things on that, because some of the comments that were made, I'm Jason Barris with American Gas and Oil. So we're trying to, this is our chance to kind of massage this facility with the berm and the wall to accomplish a lot of things. A little less visibility from the intersection, not a closed-in look when you're getting gas and stuff like that. And then by eliminating one of the curb cuts on Abbott, there's like right now there's an existing wall. So when you're coming out of those drives, you're actually kind of coming up a hill. The stone wall that's there right now, kind of facing the pumps. You know, you kind of got to kind of nose out there. So if somebody's walking down the sidewalk, so this is our chance to, you know, we're going to kind of tighten that berm up a little bit, put the wall in. It'll be all stone. The stone will match the building. So it'd be kind of like when you pull into some communities or whatever. Sometimes you see a monument sign or whatever, and they'll say, "Welcome to East Lansing" or whatever. You know, so that's supposed to be the landscaping and everything's supposed to just kind of accomplish, and height. We'll have short stuff so it just doesn't look like a whole wall, and then we'll have tall trees that kind of cover the building, and it'll look a lot nicer than the bare concrete stone wash thing that it is right now. I agree with you. It's my daughter goes to Michigan State and she won't go to that place. I tell her when she leaves, I'm like, hey, get gas, and she goes to a different station because she says it's too scary. So, you know, this is our chance to make it very, very much more appealing and go from there. So thank you.
just one final question for me,
Yeah.
and then I'll see if there's any last remaining questions. So the color of the exterior on page 37 there, so that kind of gray beige
Yes.
combination, that's what you plan to go with? Because I know last time we talked about you having red and that maybe being not a great
Yeah.
fit for that site,
We're
so-
updating it anyways.
Yeah.
And Landon, you had one of those pictures with the kind of color renderings and stuff like that. So it's going to be kind of like, I'd say earth tones, but yeah, this is probably a little lighter gray on there, just in that print. So the roof line will probably be like a bronze or a charcoal. The siding, it's like a LP siding, kind of like a hardy board. You know, that'll be a little darker gray, and then this stone will be not that plain, but it's like a field stone, kind of a Bucks Creek. I don't know if you probably don't know that color, but it's kind of multicolor, so it fits with the roof, the siding, and then it's just it's a good look. You know, it's a more cleaner look than the bright, you know, colors from before.
Yeah, I think it
So
looks much more
yeah,
appropriate.
we modernized it a little bit and stuff like that. So.
Questions? Vice Chair?
Last time we had an extensive discussion about the elevation, because you know when you go in there now, it's sort of a big
Yeah.
dip.
Yeah.
Is it still going to be even? Are any changes to the elevation?
No,
from
the
last
elevation,
time?
the pavement, everything is all the same as before, so that dip will be taken out. It's just, again, we added that 5.5, 6 foot wall in front to preserve the grading in the clear vision corner and then provide the screening.
Okay, great.
I didn't change the pavement, so it's gonna be nice and
Right.
smooth when you get in there.
Yeah.
I think, you know, in the past, I've always had concerns there with the elements, with ice and whatnot
Yeah.
too, so thanks for clarifying that. Seeing no additional questions, would anybody want to make and thank you for your overview, would anybody want to make a motion on this?
It is a public hearing.
Oh, it is a public hearing, so at this point, we will, mixing up my agenda, I've opened this up for a public hearing, in case there's any members of the public that wish to come forward and address us on this. All right, seeing none, is anyone online in the queue?
There's nobody waiting in the queue.
All right, at this point, we'll close the public hearing. Thanks for keeping me in check, Landon. So at this point, is there a motion to consider this item tonight?
I'll make a motion to consider it tonight.
Okay. Motion by, would you read the motion in the agenda packet? I think it's.
I didn't see it. I didn't see the one either. 'Cause I thought one was not.
one because it is only a public hearing.
Right. Yeah, sure. No, you go ahead. You're way more professional than I am.
Landon, do you have a motion? Do you know what page it's on? Oh, there isn't. I think you can just read.
Please.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, with my colleagues' approval, I could make a motion if you're ready for that.
Please do.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval to City Council of a request to demolish the convenience store, gas pumps, and car wash at 100 East Saginaw Road and reconstruct a new convenience store and gas pumps as detailed in this evening's staff report.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Boyd. Discussion of this motion? I have some thoughts, but I will defer it to the commission first. There's going to be some
Would you like me to
mid-century
speak to
modern
my
comments,
motion?
maybe.
I just
Commissioner
think-
Williams?
I think we have delayed this for a significant amount of time. We've had an opportunity to have our answers to the questions that we posed months ago and updated again this evening. And with the updated plan, I think it's time to move this forward for council's consideration.
And I'm sorry to jump in. I was just reminded that under parliamentary procedure, we should have a motion to suspend the rules before making the motion to recommend approval or denial.
Is it appropriate for me to withdraw my
It
motion
is.
then?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to.
Please
We don't have to
consider
vote
that
on the
withdrawal.
do we?
You don't.
Okay.
You don't have to
Thank
vote
you
on
again
withdrawal, but you
for keeping
would
us
want to
in
vote
check,
to
Landon.
suspend the rules first.
Okay. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So
Moved by Commissioner Williams.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Boyd. Any discussion on that motion? I think you just, some discussion, so maybe if you want to reiterate quickly what you said there, Commissioner Williams.
We've had this under consideration for quite some time. We've had public hearings, we've had opportunities to have our questions addressed, and we now have an updated plan before us, which also reflects the applicant's consideration of concerns raised by council. So I think at this time, it's appropriate to move it forward for council's consideration.
Yeah, I completely agree. Is there any other discussion?
I would prefer not to bend our rules, but I think uphold or adhering to our rules is important. So I will be not voting for that.
In general, I agree with you, but I think the circumstances of this one are a bit different. So I'm in favor, but I'm happy to vote on it unless there's any further discussion. Seeing no further discussion, could we get a quick roll call vote?
A roll call for
suspending the rules.
Suspending rules, yes. Commissioner Boyd.
Yes.
Commissioner Chapin.
Yes, in this case.
Commissioner Denault.
No.
Commissioner Overbey.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wagner.
Yes.
And Chair Sullivan.
Yes.
The ayes have it, 6-1.
Now you have to make your motion.
Commissioner Williams, now would you like
You
to?
ready?
Yeah. Make a motion on approval.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval to City Council of a request to demolish the convenience store, gas pumps, and car wash at 100 East Saginaw Road and reconstruct a new convenience store and gas pumps as detailed in the staff report in tonight's meeting packet.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Boyd, moved by Commissioner Williams. Discussion?
I just have a comment.
Commissioner Overbey?
I want to thank the applicants for taking seriously the concerns of the commission and the city council and coming back to us with what, in our view, seems to be appropriate changes, and we're glad to move this forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Denault?
I know you're waiting for my commercial mid-century architecture comment, so I'll just make it now and get it out of the way. Everyone's laughing at me, and that's fine. This is right. I, as the someone who I think feels very strongly about the sort of story that mid-century architecture tells about East Lansing, especially commercial structures, which are at particular risk. here across the city. We've seen, I mean, this has come up multiple times now in our deliberations, not just this gas station, but other mid-century structures and their landscapes that have been threatened. And so I still have, I think, those qualms and misgivings. And I don't think that I will be voting in favor. I think there are other ways to potentially rehabilitate the location and the structure, and that we haven't really considered or explored in any sort of substantial way, right? The applicant has essentially just said that it's unable to be rehabilitated. And I would be interested in seeing what an alternative would look like.
Understood. Thank you for your comments.
Especially, I think, on that corner, right? Kitty corner from that beautiful mid-century building that we so recently have had on our agenda. Yeah.
And Commissioner Denault, for the record, for the minutes, I was laughing with you. Not at you.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's all in friendly jest. Y'all will just make fun of me with mid-century architecture and trees. And that's
I am
fine.
mid-century architecture myself, so
Yeah.
I'm on board.
See? Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Chapin, do you have a couple comments?
No, I just wanted, when you speak, I listen. And I want you to know that we don't often vote on the same way, but I really appreciate your input. I think it's valid. I think it validates your position and your viewpoint. I think it's necessary on a commission like this, and I just wanted to say that. I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I just want you to know, when you speak, I listen. I think it's valid, and I appreciate it. So
I appreciate you very much.
My buddy down there is giving me a hard time.
You just have a way with words. I don't know. Yeah.
It's all good.
Look, just address that briefly. I absolutely agree with the need and the desire to preserve the mid-century architecture. I just don't think that this site, as it currently exists, is a great site. I think there's safety issues there. I think it looks like it's something out of Lord of the Rings, sort of, where you go down there and it's a little old hobbit house. But I think that the plan that's before us is a good plan to put a building that aesthetically fits the character of that area and addresses a lot of the concerns that were raised by council. I appreciate the greenery that was put on the corner there, which I think is a nice touch. And the stone wall, while I agree there could be some visibility concerns there, I think it's a good kind of compromise for that site. The gray color is a lot better. I just think it's come time to modernize that, and without an alternative in front of us, I think this is the way we should go. So I'll be voting yes as well. So without any further comments, any additional discussion before we vote? I can't tell if that's a.
Did not raise my hand.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm good.
All right. Roll call vote, please, Lynn.
So for the motion to recommend approval, made by Williams, seconded by Boyd, Commissioner Boyd.
Yes.
Commissioner Chapin.
Yes.
Commissioner Denault.
No.
Commissioner Overbey.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wagner.
Yes.
Chair Sullivan.
Yes.
Guys have it 6-1.
Thank you. So this item has been recommended by Planning Commission, is now on to City Council at a to-be-determined City Council meeting. So thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Yep. All right, that brings us on to the unfinished business portion of tonight's agenda. Okay, ready? Brings us on to the unfinished business portion of tonight's agenda. Item 7.1, consideration of ordinance 1529, a proposed conditional rezoning of 730 Grove Street for use as a Class B multiple family dwelling bed and breakfast. Mr. Bartley?
Thank you. So you did see this request before you at the public hearing at your last meeting. And the Commission had requested additional information, and because of that, postponed a decision at that time, or I should say just postponed in general, the item to this meeting. Their suggestions, the Commission had asked for additional clarity as far as whether an owner or non-owner will be staying on the premises, what the role of the caretaker is, asked about what if there were no on-premise staff, needed more detail and understanding of the operational details of the proposed bed and breakfast, and suggested there should be a full-time caretaker. The applicant has submitted very similar conditions to what they had previously offered up. They did add a condition voluntarily to specify that the property would not be used as a fraternity or sorority. So the conditions, and those are in a resolution in your staff report, but the conditions sort of fit into a recommendation of approval language, is that any land use contemplated by the proposed conditional rezoning shall be subject to the requirements of the underlying zone district, RM32. So essentially just saying this is still required the underlying RM32 zoning still applies, except that only the conditioned use is allowed. The property shall only be used as a owner-occupied bed and breakfast per the applicant. Each floor can be rented separately or as a whole house per the applicant. A ground sign with an area no greater than 10 square feet may be installed. Property shall be licensed as a rental and inspected yearly, and that the property shall not be used as a fraternity or sorority. So those would be the conditions offered by the applicant. The also offered up in a new a new attachment in this packet is a brief business plan that was included, executive summary, business description, market analysis, marketing strategy, operations plan, financial plan, conclusion. It's a brief document, but I think the applicant's intent was to try to address some of the questions that the Commission had at this last meeting. So with that, I don't know what I can tell you that's especially new to this request, other than what's been added to your packet in the conditions and the business plan details. I defer to the applicant on some of the other details, or how I guess they're addressing your concerns from last time. Can I answer any questions before we invite up the applicant?
Yeah, Mr. Bartley, a quick
Yes.
question for me. So this is just a conditional rezoning, right? So there's no site plan, or are we potentially going to have to look at something down the line?
Yes. So thank you for that question. So this request is for a rezoning, a conditional rezoning, so that the current zone district would be changed to RM32, conditioned only upon that that property can only be used for the land use as described in the conditions, being a Class B multifamily rental, which is a bed and breakfast. And we're working on a definition for that, and I'd hope to have more updates for you. I hoped for this time, but hopefully next time. So should this be approved, I should say recommended for approval by this commission, and then held up, I guess, not the word held up, but also approved by City Council, then this property would be zoned RM32, conditioned on its use as a bed and breakfast. That said, all that would have changed at that point was the zoning. So if the applicant wants to have a bed and breakfast, a Class B multifamily residential dwelling, as defined in the RM32 district, that still requires special use approval. So the applicant would have to return to you, even if this conditional rezoning goes through. All it's saying is the zoning has changed. The applicant would return to you and to the City Council for special use approval, at which point you'd consider the use, whether it's appropriate, and the site, as far as for site plan review purposes, doesn't meet the requirements of the ordinance.
And
so
then-
that's a long answer for a short question.
Just a general question about conditional rezoning. So if they fail to meet the conditions required of them to, as a bed and breakfast, it would revert back to the zoning as it is today.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I should clarify, there's been some, I think, misperceptions about how that process happens. It's not automatic. but the action by staff is automatic. When we learn that that if we were to learn that the use has gone away or been abandoned for whatever reason or changed to a non-conforming use, then we would begin enforcement action, which would be you have an opportunity to remedy if the applicant doesn't remedy the violation of it after a given time, typically 2 to 4 weeks. At that point, then we'd begin the process of rezoning the property back to its existing R2 zoning. So it's not just the automatic snap of the fingers, it's only changed back. It would be a process, would require public hearings. But yeah, if the zone, or excuse me, if the use changes, the zoning would be reverted or start that process.
Thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Vice Chair?
Yes, sir.
I just want to confirm, so I heard someone say tonight that this is a historic district, but the statement here says it's not a historic district. Is that true?
It is not currently located within a historic district.
Okay.
The Historic District Commission at the last meeting, I brought this sort of as an informal opinion, but at the request of the applicant, would there be interest in considering expanding the College Grove District, which comprises much of essentially the neighborhood north of City Hall up to Bircham, and then 6 properties north of Bircham around Grove and Bircham, which is including a property that's immediately adjacent to 730 Grove to the east. Also the property immediately adjacent to the south, sort of southwest sorority property. The southern half of that property with the building is in the historic district. The northern half, the parking lot is outside somehow. So the HDC did consider, okay, we'd probably want to add this property in the north half of that property, but they declined to take any action at this time. The thought was not necessarily that there wasn't any or merit to the request, but rather that they were concerned that sort of opening the door to changing the boundaries at this point might not necessarily mean an expansion, but might change the district in ways that they weren't comfortable to see at this point. So as far as I'm aware, the HDC does not intend to revisit this question right now. They said they're interested, they want to sort of keep it in mind, but they are not prepared to take action.
Can I ask another?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that thorough explanation. And we don't know what a bed and breakfast is. We don't have a definition. Like, what's the difference between Airbnb and a
Right.
bed and breakfast?
No, it's not explicitly defined in the code. The closest we have to a definition of bed and breakfast is based on the Wild Goose Inn when it was constructed and moved in sort of to downtown. At the time, the city attorney said, we don't have a definition of bed and breakfast. The closest we have is Class B multiple family rental, or excuse me, residential. And therefore, that's how it should be governed. So we've gone with that since. There are very few bed and breakfasts or bed and breakfast requests that we've had. But this process has, I guess, made it very clear that we need to have a definition of bed and breakfast, and so that's in process. I just don't have a timeline yet.
Any additional questions from Mr. Bartley? Seeing none. Perhaps
That's Mr. Zawacki.
the applicant could come forward and give an overview of some of the updates.
Hello, I'm Mike Zawacki, the owner at 730 Grove Street. I've added some of the things we talked about at the last meeting, like the no sorority or fraternity condition into the list of conditions. And also into the business plan, I described how a local caretaker would be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the bed and breakfast. So those things are in there. I also spoke with, in the meantime, since the last meeting, a few bed and breakfast owners and managers, and they shared some helpful information about running a bed and breakfast. They said some things like focus on exceptional customer service, cleanliness, and delicious breakfast options that cater to dietary restrictions. Also maintaining a unique identity as a historical an architecturally significant home would make this bed and breakfast special and ultimately successful. The Planning Commission before had voted for this, had approved it 5-1 to go to the City Council, and my take from the City Council was that I should revisit it with conditions. That was the reason for that I got for them denying it. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. That's pretty much what I have.
Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Denault?
I saw in your application that you have shared with us your application for a historic marker with the Michigan History Center.
Yes.
I know that we've previously discussed your trying to get the property designated as a historic site, right? So like beyond just purchasing a marker, right, to get it actually listed and recognized.
Yes.
Is that still in the works? Is
Yeah,
that something?
the application's in for that. There's like an initial application, and then I have to, and then a full application. It seems like, but I have to wait for them to come back and talk about the initial application. But that's submitted, yeah.
Okay, and is that for the
national.
National Register?
Yeah.
Okay, and so maybe a clarifying question for Mr. Bartley then. Do we know, have we seen a application for a local designation for this site?
No. What I received from the applicant was the Michigan Historical Marker application. And that was it, and that's in the
Okay.
packet. So I'm not aware of a local designation application.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, the local application, wasn't that what I told you that I
Well,
wanted?
your
or is
intent
that-
was
is that different? I'm
whether or
sorry.
not to expand the district. At this point, the commission wasn't interested in expanding the district.
Oh, okay.
I guess the next question would be, would they be interested in landmarking it? I'd be speculating if I said whether or not I think they will. But if I'm going to speculate, I would think that it's not quite there right now.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
that's my
I-
personal opinion.
Yeah,
Not
I only
professionals.
ask, sorry.
No, calling on you to speak.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I only ask because there's different rules and different protections that are offered with a local designation versus the National Register.
Right.
And so, right, for like local designations have more teeth or enforcement behind
Yeah.
them, which is the only reason why I'm making such a big fuss about, well, is it National
Makes sense.
Register or is it local?
Yes.
And I think, Mr. Bartley's point that the Historic District Commission is probably not interested in adding it to the College Grove District.
Sure.
Probably because it does not fit within the time period that the College Grove District
Sure,
is
yeah.
representing. So I would
Yeah.
understand that. And so I would just encourage you to consider local designation as well.
Sure, absolutely, yes.
Additional questions? Commissioner Boyd?
Considering the historic district and the application that you submitted locally or statewide, if that doesn't come to fruition, if you're, excuse me, if you're not approved for that, what kind of impact will that have on you and this inn?
If I'm not approved for the national, or
Either of them. So
what kind of impact would it have on what specifically? Sorry.
So, from what I've heard from you, this is going to
Sure.
be a historic inn. It's based on, whatever architect guy. You want to move it into the historic district and all this stuff. So it sounds like we're trying to make this bed and breakfast a historical place.
Yeah,
If you're not approved for that,
sure.
what's that look like?
I'm doing everything I can. As far as making it a bed and breakfast, my whole position on doing that is all about the historical, and either way, irregardless of approval or denial, my whole thing is the preservation of the house, of the history and the architecture. I think this is the best way to do it. going back to how it currently is zoned with its college students in there, I've spent a lot of money over the years and really tried hard to preserve the house, to the way it was originally, and unfortunately, students party. I try to limit that as much as I can living there, but they do, and things break that aren't replaceable, and stuff like that happens. But I spent a lot of money, and I think making it a bed and breakfast is the right way to go, the best way to preserve the house for now and in the future. For the neighborhood and the city and everyone that, So it wouldn't affect how I go about preserving and running the bed and breakfast.
So the question for me is, say this doesn't get approved at this level or at the council level, what would be your plan for the property?
Keep it like it is.
Which is just a traditional rental, right?
Traditional student, yep, rental, owner plus, yep, 5, the number of people that are allowed to live with me.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Williams?
I'm looking at your conditions, and the new one says no sorority or fraternity will be allowed. So I believe you have, is it a sorority that's next door, right?
It is, yes.
So let's suppose they're having an event and the sorority wants to lease a floor for 30 days. Would that be within or outside of your condition?
If the sorority wants to rent a space for their own, that would be considered an event, more or less, I think that that would go against the occupancy limits that would be set by the fire marshal and would be determined, but I could be wrong. But I don't really think that would be allowed.
Maybe I'm just parsing your language. I'm wondering if, I guess, let me ask it a different way.
Sure.
I don't think you're saying that no sorority or fraternity can lease. I think maybe you're saying no fraternity or sorority can be established in this dwelling unit, maybe.
Yes.
So maybe I'm just looking for a little clarity there.
So before you answer, so just to clarify, you're asking more so about the verbiage of the condition than whether or not a sorority or a group of sorority women would be able to lease.
As I read that, I'm like, oh, is that what he
understand what
really
you're
means?
I
Does
see
he
what you
mean will
mean.
be allowed, or does he mean will
I see what
be
you mean.
established? I don't think you mean to exclude, like, say, the
Okay.
sorority next door as an entity wants to actually lease part of it for a period of time.
Sure.
Is that allowed? It's not clear to me, so I'm just trying to understand moving forward
Yeah.
what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, absolutely.
Landon, can we can't revise the conditions
we can't,
for this,
They
right?
have
So
to be volunteered from the
And
applicant.
maybe it's just me, but I didn't think that was very clear.
no, I agree. Yeah, it could be worded better. Landon, how would that process work? Could he verbally agree to changing it now, or does it have to be in writing, or what does that look like?
I'm pulling that up real quick.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but
Oh, no, it's fine.
it's a good point. It's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it should say something along the lines, if that's the intent, no sorority or fraternity shall be established on the premises or on the site.
So the section 50-111 subsection H. The offer of conditions may be amended during the process of rezoning consideration. provided that any amended or additional conditions are voluntarily offered by the owner in writing, signed, dated, and made part of the record of proceeding. An owner may withdraw all or part of its offer of conditions anytime prior to final rezoning action of the City Council, provided that if such withdrawal occurs subsequent to the Planning Commission's public hearing on the original rezoning request, then the rezoning application shall be referred to the Planning Commission for a new public hearing with appropriate notice and new recommendation. So, as I'm reading that, technically speaking, if we had one additional condition, it should have been another public hearing.
But if you're not adding a condition, you're revising a condition, does that hold true?
That's true. That's correct. If such withdrawal, an owner may withdraw all or part of their offer of conditions anytime prior to final rezoning action, if that occurs subsequent to the Planning Commission's public hearing. So that's for withdrawal of the conditions, not changes. Let me see if there's a specific. No, it just says the amendment process. The offer of conditions may be amended during the process, provided that any amended or additional conditions are voluntarily offered by the owner in writing, signed, and dated, and made part of the record of proceeding. It's hard for me to say how best to proceed here. I think that you could suggest changes that you would like to see as a recommendation to council if you were to. I mean, regardless tonight, unless you postpone a decision, some sort of recommendation will go to council. I think that it would be within your rights to comment on the conditions that are offered, and should the applicant choose to amend those, he would do so voluntarily, in writing, signed, dated, and made part of the record. So, but that could happen between now and city council consideration.
Okay. Is that revision of that condition agreeable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree.
Commissioner Overbey?
Well, I just want to clarify what it is. What is the change in the condition? That it will not be converted to or used as a fraternity or sorority, or that no fraternity or sorority members will be allowed to rent space in there and turn it into an expansion and temporarily of their fraternity or sorority. I see those as two separate things.
I think it would be the former, because without being an attorney, I don't think you could do the second one legally. You can't
right.
discriminate against certain
Right.
groups of
Right. I don't
people,
either.
and yeah, I mean you could prohibit certain established uses, but
Right.
I don't think you could discriminate against
Yes.
groups of people from renting or leasing
I
something.
agree with that.
So I think it would be the former. Although I'm not the one revising the condition, ultimately that onus would fall on you prior to the next council meeting that this is taken up. Commissioner Williams?
Chairperson Sullivan, I think that was added at your suggestion at our last discussion of this matter, and I think that the former is what you meant.
Yes.
No establishment of a fraternity or sorority. I just don't think that
It
necessarily
was 100% what I had suggested.
is
and
expressed
what I
as
had intended,
clearly,
but
right.
Yeah, but the terminology on the, so. I agree, thank you for pointing it out, and hopefully that gets resolved. This will get sent to council regardless if we recommend approval or denial. Vice Chair?
Can we talk about condition number 3 for a second? The property shall only be used as a non-owner occupied bed and breakfast for the applicant. So you currently live there, right? So if it were to be rezoned, you would not live there. And we don't know what a bed and breakfast is, right? So if we said this is going to be Airbnb.
Well, we know that a bed and breakfast is a
Right.
Class B multifamily residential
Right.
dwelling. So anything that is included in that definition
Okay.
would be included, and that's why the applicant is narrowing down that definition to say.
Okay.
It also includes fraternities and sororities. That's not this.
I see. Okay.
And the self-imposed conditions that they're recommending would, align it with that type of use, despite the city not having a definition of exactly what a bed and breakfast is.
Thanks.
So, okay, any additional questions or comments before we have a motion? Is there a motion?
to recommend approval of ordinance 1529, a conditional rezoning request from Michael Zawicki to amend the zoning use district map of Chapter 50 zoning of the Code of Ordinances to rezone the .3 acre parcel located at 730 Grove Street from R2 medium density single family residential district to RM32 city center multiple family residential district for the following reasons. The land uses allowable under the new zoning district are compatible with other zoning districts and land uses. Public services would not be significantly adversely impacted by future development. And 3, the uses allowed under the proposed rezoning would be equally or better suited to the area as uses allowed under the current zoning of the land. Approval is conditioned on the 7 conditions offered by the applicant.
Thank you. Is there a second? Moved by Commissioner Denault. What? Second? Nobody's going to second. We have to have a second on it so we can.
I'll second it for the purpose
Yeah.
of
Commissioner Williams?
moving this discussion
Yeah.
forward.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Williams. Discussion? I'll lead it off. I think, as some members of the public that came forward, I think review of what is considered a bed and breakfast is absolutely necessary, and I'm glad that you're looking at that land and taking a closer look at that, and you know the overall zoning in this area too. I think is something we should take a closer look at, and you know, in my mind, I think you know something has to go here, right? It's is it going to be this house that I think is a better use for the community if it's used as Airbnb, or is it currently as it's used as a student rental, or is it going to be some alternative that hasn't happened yet? Should it get rezoned to some other density or some other use? You know, but right now, what he's trying to do, the city requires him to go this route, according to what the city ordinance is. So it's student rental or B&B really is kind of what we're deciding. I think he's made additional compromises since he's been before us with the conditional rezoning, with the additional conditions. We asked him to clarify his business plan. He's clarified his business plan for us. So it's kind of a scenario where we're considering hypothetical negatives of approval versus hypothetical negatives of denial, right? And the denying this, I think, is redevelopment on this site that's potentially less historical, that does away with the building that's there, or it's maintained as a student rental. And I think the option of having this be the use as intended here is preferable in my opinion. And of course, if that is not what happens on the site, it reverts back to what it is now. So with that in mind, I guess my opinion hasn't changed. I think there's been additional safeguards that have been added here, and I've been supportive of it as I consider what the alternatives are. So, yep. Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. And, you know, I feel like my position on this has been made abundantly clear, so I won't, I think, go further into that. But I do also think, right, we had approved this when we had seen it previously without any of these safeguards. And in some ways, we are, this property and how it's used is actually more protected than when we had granted our initial approval of this. And I think we did that, and we asked for that, you know, both because that's what City Council asked for, and it's also being sensitive to the concerns of the neighborhood, trying our best with as we're able, with the tools that we have, to assuage any concerns or fears that they have expressed. I think you're right that there's no great way to do this in our current policy context. And I think we're doing as good of a job as we're able to do in moving this on to City Council.
Mr. Boyd?
I'm still conflicted, and it's in our packet, that we had the same thing happen in 2023 for, I think it was across the street, to change it to RM32, and we didn't even get to conditions with them. We just denied. And you know, those houses were horrible, so if they'd have knocked them down, you wouldn't have hurt my feelings, but we denied them of everything. So now we're going to a house asking for the same thing, but yeah, we're gonna turn it into a bed and breakfast. I don't know, it's hard for me to wanna approve this when we, less than a year ago, denied somebody else that was probably gonna develop something nice.
I do think that
I was going to say, just, recalling that previous meeting, I think one of the main reasons why we denied what was on the west side of the street was because they were not as forthcoming as they potentially should have been
Correct,
about
yes.
what they
They
were going to be
weren't,
putting
yes.
there until kind of the 11th hour. And at that point, I think our minds were,
But just like with this, I mean, you can approve the RM32, for them to come back to do a sorority or whatever, you have to get the B2 or whatever to do it, or whatever you're gonna do. So, I don't know, I'm still conflicted on it.
theirs wasn't conditional either, though.
Right. I don't
Yeah.
even think we got to that.
No, we didn't. We just denied it. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
like I feel like the caginess of that proposal that was brought to us is in stark contrast to what the applicant how willing the applicant has been to share more information and bring more documentation and respond to our needs. Right, we asked very pointed and clear questions to the previous applicants for the project across the street, like, what is your intention? And we were not given any information to make an assessment on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, and as we look at the comprehensive plan, I think that area is an area we should look at. Like, how do we improve affordable housing and bring new different populations into the community that could live there that potentially aren't students? And, as Commissioner Boyd said, I have no love for the properties that are on that site now. So, anyhow, any further discussion on this proposal?
Only to say that
Commissioner Denault.
you make a really good point that area is potentially an area that could be ripe for redevelopment of affordable housing on the other side. And maybe this is a sort of precursor to that, right? A sort of, I don't want to use the term landmark, right? Because it actually is, it will be a historic landmark. But it's sort of paving the way for that particular block of Grove Street to change in positive ways for East Lansing. I promise I'll stop talking now.
No, well said.
I think
Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I'm sorry, should have raised my hand
No, you're
there.
good.
So,
Just parliamentary
you know,
procedure training.
I think I just need to talk aloud for a moment or two, and I'm not sure. I thought I was very certain how I was going to vote on this. I think what I'm missing is the piece that occurred before I became part of the commission. So the part that Matt's referred to, the other parts, I think, Cynthia, you made some comments at the end of the last meeting that sort of flipped that a little bit in my mind, and we paused and we asked for the second meeting. So I'm hearing the neighbors say that they don't want this change. Am I hearing that correctly? And I'm still not sure, especially after the questions about sorority and fraternity, that we really have a good, succinct, definite plan moving forward here. So I'm inclined to vote no. My mind hasn't been changed really since that last meeting, but I think I just need to say that and have someone respond to that if my logic is dramatically off. But that's where I land on this right now. I'll be a no vote.
So thinking back at that last meeting that, you weren't yet on the commission for, I think a lot of us were inclined to vote no, and then we really started to have a deeper conversation about preservation of the historical nature of the site and what's the best method to do that and how do you future-proof that. And I think, I can't speak for everyone, but I came to the conclusion that this is probably the best way to do that, because if you don't do that, who knows what's going to happen on the site. You leave up to a lot of hypothetical scenarios, and it was that for me in combination of student rental or a tourist attraction. And I think at the end of the day,
So I'm not
That's
so
where I
sure the
landed.
neighbors believe that that's how this will transpire, how this will evolve. I'm sort of aligned right now based on what I've heard with the neighbors and their request to keep this the same. Not knowing how this might evolve, I think that's where I am.
yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Overbey.
So I too am really struggling with this. It comes down to me to a couple of issues. Which do I think is better for the city and the neighborhood to have an Airbnb or to have a student rental? And who wants each of those to occur? The neighbors or the property owners? And how do I balance what the property owners want to do with what the neighbors want to do? And I won't know how I'm going to vote until my name is called. and I am truly
What if we call you
struggling.
first? Yeah.
Well, I am truly struggling with this, and it's colored by my views living in the Bailey neighborhood and seeing what I believe is creeping commercialism and creeping rentals in the neighborhood. And as much as we try to stop them with the overlays, they're just going to keep coming like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So how do I sort those things out, and how do I try to make a decision for myself that's fair to the neighbors and the property owners and the city? And as I said, when they call my name, I'll know what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think you make some really good points about property owner rights, which I really hadn't thought about, right, versus the requests that we're hearing from neighbors, right? How do you balance these two really competing values or competing wants? And I lost my train of thought. That's embarrassing to have on public record, right? That's okay.
If you wouldn't have said it, I wouldn't have noticed.
I know. Thank you.
I just thought you were deep in thought.
I was deep in thought, trying to remember what my thought was.
Yeah.
Oh, your point, Chair Sullivan, about what the neighbors, what neighbors want, right? Do they want to see a B&B? No. But do they want to see this house, right, worst case scenario, demolished? The houses next door to it were demolished to make way for a sorority house. And I fear that by not offering some sort of protections for it, which the owner is trying to do, is in the process of doing, I do worry about that quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think the neighbors would want that, right? I don't think they would want to see this house torn down. So.
Yeah. Vice Chair.
I just think this is a super thoughtful conversation. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be voting no. For a lot of the reasons like Chuck was talking about the neighbors, I think the neighbors probably, when they came to talk to about the 32 designation across the street, hold the same, and they're property owners too, right? Like, it's not just one property owner, it's property owners, and they are a minority. There's a lot of rental houses there, right? And that spur, I can't remember the name of the street right now. What is it? Ridge, right? There are a few property owners there, and they're feeling like they're in a sea of students, so I think it's important to take their considerations into account. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sold here, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Boyd.
I mean, if it's a B&B, it could actually be demolished as well, unless it gets approved as a historic district. So until it's approved as historical, this is all hearsay.
And local historical.
And local,
Not-
for
not-
sure,
not
yes.
National Register.
Local, state, I want everything. I want the whole country approved it.
Landon, it doesn't, it being an Airbnb or B&B or whatever, the term is, isn't dependent on historical. I think they just want to make it a historical site so that can be a focus and feature
Correct.
of it, yeah.
Correct. But what the saying was, it could be demolished if it just kept to be a rental property
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
If it was a bed and breakfast and it wasn't historic, it could be torn down too.
Yeah, yeah. It could be torn down, yeah, regardless, but I think it being historical makes it harder to tear. I don't know. You would know better than I would about the extra hoops you have to jump through to get something historical
Only
taken down.
local designations.
Look, it's like, just to kind of comment on some of those things, and then I'll turn it over to Commissioner Williams for what's going to be probably a really well-reasoned and rational review of. Part of the struggle I've had is I hear conflicting. I hear some members of the public that are here, obviously. Like I hear it's kind of some conflicting things. It's like they want it to be maintained as a historical site. They don't want it to be a student rental, I'm assuming, and that's what it is now. They're afraid of the future uses for the site. Well, it's a conditional rezoning, so that's out the window. It's not historical now, but this creates a pathway for it to become a historical site. And then, like I said earlier, you're doing student rentals now versus an Airbnb, which likely, according to what the business plan we have in front of us, is going to tailor to, parents of students that want to come in and stay there. So it's, and the traffic concerns too. I just don't think that you're going to see an influx of traffic there compared to what you see now. You're already going to have the traffic of the student friends or not spouses, but girlfriends or boyfriends coming over. And right now, you're probably not going to have it rented out in the week if it's an Airbnb, if it's a B&B, because people are going to use it on the weekends. So I don't know. It's like I think those are valid concerns, and I think that we need to consider those things. But at the end of the day, I think, oddly enough, the outcome that gets them potentially the most desired use for the site is approving this, which is counterintuitive, but something has to go there. Like something's there now and something has to go there. So I don't know. That's my perspective on trying to balance all of those interests. So, Commissioner Boyd?
I forgot what I was going to say. No, I'm not. now.
It's a contagious.
Oh, what was it?
Well, while you're thinking of
Go ahead.
I think that your point, Chair Sullivan, that I'm struggling with the word. I haven't lost my train of thought. I'm just struggling with the word. The amount of use, right? The intensity of use that we see with the structure will be less as a B&B than it is now as a student rental. I think that's a really well thought out point. And I would also say the clientele based on the business plan, right, that the owner is interested in marketing this to, right, are sure, right, probably parents of students, and right, that can sort of be hemmed in by how much he decides to charge per night as well, right? If he makes it an inaccessible price for students to rent out as a B&B, right? You're already sort of narrowing your clientele. And the other thing that I'll just say, us architecture nerds, we're generally not wild partiers. I will self-identify in that way, so I think you are correct. That the intensity of use will probably not be as great.
Commissioner Williams, I don't think you had your comments, then Commissioner Boyd.
I'm sorry, is it?
Yeah, go.
This has been a very good conversation.
Yeah.
And this has been a tortured path to get to where we are today. I think, though, that as a result of all this conversation, all the questions we've asked the applicant, the conditions he has returned with instead of just a rezoning to RM32, which did seem to provoke a lot of resistance from his neighbors. I think this is a much better proposal than what was before us previously when we started this discussion. I could be wrong, but I sense that there's a reduction in the resistance from the neighbors. There's certainly a reduction in the number of people coming before us to discuss it since we've been talking about a conditional rezoning as opposed to where we started. It could just be the dedication of the neighbors who are here tonight, which I appreciate. But I do see that change, and I hope that not only is this a better proposal, but there's a improved relationship too between the applicant and his neighbors. There definitely has been more conversation, I think, and I think that's a positive. I think that compared to the status quo, the proposal in front of us is a higher and better use of this property. Not that we get to decide those kinds of things, but I do think it is. And I think that if this does move forward, this could result in the preservation of, what could be an historic gem, in the community moving forward, hopefully. I have hopes. So I will, with some reservations and some still concerns, and some hopefulness that what I see as the beginning of an improved relationship between the applicant and his neighbors continues, that I'll be voting in support, but I'll be crossing my fingers and hoping for the best.
Mr. Boyd?
We've been talking about the neighbors and what the neighbors want. We've heard that they don't want a bed and breakfast, but I think what we've also heard was they wanted us to not make a decision until the master plan was looked at, and to come up with another type of code. So I'm in support of that. So I just wanted to put it out there because we're talking about that they don't want a bed and breakfast, but they also suggested that we wait on this whole thing until the master plan was looked at.
I think we talked about that a little bit last time. And I think Landon detailed how extensive and how long that process would take. But I agree we need to do it. But on this particular site, I don't have a concern, given that that's what our master plan currently says, and that's the plan until it goes through the full public process to change it. But I understand. Any final comments before we take a vote on this?
No, sir.
Seeing none, again, I appreciate the discussion from everyone tonight. I do think that was productive as we address this and probably similar issues in the future. Mr. Bartley, ready for that roll call vote? Sure.
Could you
Mr. Chapin?
reread the motion, please?
Can you
I'd like that.
reread the motion?
Reread the motion, please.
I just closed my laptop. Do you have the motion open? Who made the original motion? Was it?
I did.
Denault? Yeah.
Move to recommend approval of ordinance 1529, a conditional rezoning request from Michael Zawicki to amend the zoning use district map, chapter 50 zoning of the Code of Ordinances to rezone a 0.3 acre parcel located at 730 Grove Street from R2, medium density single family residential district, to RM32, city center multiple family residential district, for the following reasons. Land uses allowable under the new zoning district are compatible with other zoning districts and land uses in the surrounding area. Public services would not be significantly adversely impacted by future development of the property. The uses allowed under the proposed rezoning would be equally or better suited to the area as uses allowed under the current zoning of the land. And this recommendation of approval is conditioned upon the following 7 conditions, which,
Sorry.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bartley, roll call, please.
Absolutely. So we have a motion recommending approval made by Denault, seconded by Williams. Commissioner Boyd, how do you vote? Commissioner Chapin?
No.
Commissioner Denault?
Yes.
Commissioner Overbey?
You called my name.
I did. Should I call it slower?
No.
Commissioner Overbey. I'm sorry.
No.
The no. Okay. Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wagner.
No.
Chair Sullivan.
Yes.
The nays have it 4-3.
All right, so this will, I believe, for a conditional rezoning, that will move on to council with the recommendation of denial from the planning commission at a meeting that they set. So
That's right. Yeah, and I can't advise right now on when that date will be. They have to set the public hearing first, but it will likely be late May or early June.
So, yeah, so thank you. You'll have your chance before council.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us on to agenda item number 8, no new business. We do not have any. So number 9, commissioner concerns. Is there any commissioner concerns?
I have a concern
Oh,
and an
Commissioner Williams?
apology,
Uh-oh.
actually, to my fellow commissioner, Commissioner Chapin. Earlier this evening, I agreed to serve as a co-representative to the Age-Friendly Communities Committee. I was not planning on volunteering for that because when I looked at the dates, I recognized right away I could not do 2 of them. But I didn't look at the other 2 because I figured I couldn't serve, and I did after I agreed to. And I serve on another board that meets on Thursdays and Fridays, requires travel, and the remaining 2 dates are those board meeting dates that will take me out of town. So I guess we either need someone to take my place to share that with Commissioner Chapin, or perhaps he'd be willing to take it over, but I'm sorry, I will not be able to do
I
that.
just saw 4 dates on my.
Yeah, that's all.
Yes.
Is
4 days.
is it over after 4 dates, or is
Yes.
that going to
I
continue?
think so. Well, I don't know.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
The committee is looking for help with the, essentially the activity of reviewing and updating their work plan. I think they have a hope that it will be finished in around the same time frame as the comprehensive plan, but I don't think that that's necessarily the case.
So it's a big committee. I saw a lot of
I would say that
representation
it's
from-
currently between 6. We'd probably go from 6 to 12 or 13.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you for being sorry. Matt?
I know.
All right. It is what it is. That's fine. I'm just finishing a full-time position here that's going to end in a couple of days, so an interim position, so I
You'll
might
be
have a
looking
little
for
more
something
time.
to do.
I'll have a little more time. So I think I can do that, so.
Thank
be
you.
it.
And Commissioner, if it's any consolation, I staff the Age-Friendly Communities Committee, so I'll be at all the meetings, and I can work with you every step of the way.
Ah, there we go.
And you're going to become even more of a community fixture if
There
you
we
keep
go.
joining all these committees. So.
All right. So it's not my turn. Next time there's a long
Yeah.
pause. All right? Everybody got that?
Yeah,
All right.
the strategy works.
Thank you.
All right,
Seriously, we met.
I believe a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
All right, moved by Commissioner Overbey, seconded by, I heard a second somewhere.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Boyd. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. We are adjourned at 9:35 PM.